We're at the MVP Summit in Seattle, and thank you for coming up and doing this.
Of course, my pleasure.
Oh, well, we have it on record. Figured maybe we talk about something that is kind of dear to your heart. I know you've been doing tons of open source.
Yeah.
And open source is like Microsoft's like the #1 contributor in the world of open source. So,
well, I don't know about that, but
definitely
top 3 or 4, right?
Yeah.
I just am really enjoying everything. So here, let me tell you a true story. We have this little WhatsApp on our team where we do all of our like internal team chat, right? We have teams and stuff. We also have the hallway because my team is remote.
Yes, because you're remote as well.
Because I'm remote, right? So we wanted to have a place where we can all talk hallway stuff. So that's in WhatsApp.
Oh, like the water cooler channel.
The water cooler channel. So rather than the water cooler channel being on Teams, we made a WhatsApp. And we're on WhatsApp and we're talking in our team. And one of the, Maria on my team said something like, it feels like the MVP Summit has become an open source like convention. Think about the difference between the original MVP Summits that were like all the secrets, all the insiders, and then I pushed for that idea of having people get their MVP status just from doing open source.
Oh yeah.
And that was a couple years ago, and now we've got so many open source maintainers and stuff, and there's so much less under NDA, and so much more discussion about the future of open source, right? Yeah. Scott Hunter, my boss right now, is off talking about .NET Core 3 and all the stuff that we're doing, and there might be some like discussion of the future, but for the most part, if you can see it in GitHub, it's not a secret, right?
No,
and that's really cool. That's really cool. So there might be, some old parts of like Windows MVPs talking about NDA stuff, but I just think it's cool how 10 years ago, when I got here and when a lot of the enthusiasts around open source got here, we thought we would be pushing this rock uphill to try to change the company. But everybody wanted it to happen, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Sakshi wanted it to happen, Guthrie wanted it to happen, everyone's enthusiastic. So I just am enjoying this because it is the MVP Summit and there's NDA content, but at the same time it feels like it's an open source convention with a lot of people talking about their projects and the stuff that they're doing out in the open, and that makes me happy.
What's the benefits to Microsoft of doing open source, really?
Well, this is my opinion, right? So, I'm not a spokesperson or anything, so take all of this as a grain of salt, but Microsoft wants your for loop. Microsoft doesn't care what your for loop is written in, right? Ultimately, Microsoft sells Office and Xbox and compute.
Yep.
But you can simplify that even Xbox and Office down to the cloud, right?
Yeah,
They're going to execute your for loop, whether it's running Office or whatever, in the cloud. And if it's Ruby or Rust or Go or .NET, whatever makes you happy, right? The whole point is a hybrid cloud is a reality, a hybrid solution. Yes, there are solutions that are .NET top to bottom, only .NET. But for the most part, there's .NET with a little Redis, and you're talking to Postgres.
Definitely, yeah.
So why be so dogmatic about what people use?
Yeah.
All comers are welcome.
Because I've definitely seen that transformation. So I've been MVP for 5 years now.
Yeah.
And
In only 5 years you've seen that?
Yeah, because Windows Platform started with, I started with Windows Phone, and it was all closed. Yeah. Like, here's an SDK, go use it, and that was about it. And now it's like, oh, do you want WPF? Well, we open source that for you as well. Like, it's just going completely the other direction, as far as I can tell.
That makes me happy. That's exactly the goal.
Yeah.
So now I feel like we've gone from no by default to yes by default.
Yeah, because so in VS 2019, if we want to move there, because that's coming out really soon, what is everything open source in that, or is there still stuff that you would like to push into that?
Well, so Visual Studio 2019 itself, the core editor is not open source. It's not really anything that you want to necessarily see. But there's lots of extensions that are open source. All of .NET Core is open source. It's, all the SDKs for Android that come down from Xamarin are open source. Right? There's huge amounts of not just open source production, but consumption. Even since Visual Studio 2012, there's been something like 60 or 70 libraries that are pulled in. Remember the very first time we started consuming open source, when we shipped jQuery with ASP.NET.
Yep.
Now there are countless. You can go and actually look at the license.txt for Visual
I think I have,
Studio. And there's a ton of stuff in there.
It's such a different paradigm, right? And I think it makes sense.
That's the goal. And we're going to make mistakes. There'll be missteps, but at the same time, the Microsoft of our way or the highway is long over. Yeah. And now it's much more collaborative, and I think it's also, in my opinion, trying to compete on a level playing field.
Yeah. No, I agree.
That's why I work here. Otherwise, I wouldn't. I would just quit because I don't need the hassle.
Yeah. No, I agree. So what do you do every day? What's your actual? Because a lot of people just see you on stage, and they do demos and. What?
That's silly. Like the whole Rockstar programmer thing is all BS.
I agree.
A small part of my job is presenting occasionally at like Build or whatever, doing a demo or whatever. That's just being a visible programmer. Sure. But I manage community for Visual Studio, okay. So I manage community for Visual Studio, for .NET, for all of our kind of developer tools. So trying new innovative ways to get people to learn. My whole thing is ultimately, before this I was a professor at a university, so I want to teach people in new ways. So for example, Jeff Fritz on my team is kind of leading the charge with people like NoOpCat, and they're doing things on Twitch streaming.
Oh, really?
Right? So Suze Hinton and Jeff have a whole team of streamers. If you go to twitch.tv/Visual Studio, I'm trying to turn that into basically a 24-hour live code streaming channel. Yeah. So they've got teams of streamers that they brought in. So that's a new medium. I don't know if it's the next thing or if it's the new thing right now, but I think people can learn how to code that way.
Yeah, no, I agree.
We've got people like Maria who are working on try.net, which lets you run .NET code in the browser without having to install anything. So you can go to try.dot.net and you can start writing C# right now. If you go to Docs and you click on the C# code reference, all the tutorials run in the browser. They're all using Blazor. So all of your C# actually is running under Mono, under WebAssembly in the browser. So you can learn C# without doing any installation. Right? My goal would be to be able to do an entire week-long workshop and teach like a whole class C#, and they wouldn't even install anything until maybe Wednesday. Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be, that's a whole nother realm, right? Because we all used to Visual Studio heaviness.
Yeah. Well, because everyone's like, hey, let's do Hello World. Hey, kids, let's do some Hello World. First, we're going to install Visual Studio. Exactly. Right? Those days are over, right? I want to make the on-ramp to .NET, to Azure, a lot easier. Then you got John Galloway on my team, and he manages the .NET Foundation, which now has open elections. There's actually a campaign happening right now, so if you want to be on the board of the .NET Foundation, a technical steering committee, you can do that. It's modeled after the GNOME Foundation with help from Miguel de Icaza, so we have an open source foundation steering the direction of .NET. That's cool. And then I've got Jamie Singleton on my team, and we recently moved all the .NET all the MSDN blogs onto a new platform. She managed all of that. That's a good example of something where if you didn't notice anything happen or go bad, then she did her job, which is amazing. She manages Xamarin. So I've got a whole team of cool people doing cool community stuff. And they're all here running around at the MVP Summit. So see if you can find them.
I will. That's very good. Thanks so much, Scott. Appreciate it. Thanks for your time, man.